So 26 years ago today, I wrote this diary entry on September 6th, 1996. Today it's September 6th, 2022 at 6 a.m. And what's immediately interesting to me, well, in all my diary entries, looking back, what's interesting is, of course, the things I included and the things I didn't include. Sometimes more telling what I didn't include. The fact that there wasn't planetary hours, moon phase, my physical health, emotional state, mental state described here shows that I wasn't following the sort of rigid requirements that would be put upon me 2 months later when I was initiated into the Golden Dawn Temple Tahuti in Vancouver. So here, what I'm doing is focusing more on just my relationships with the spirits, particularly in this case, a spirit guide or an angel guide that I had been put in touch with. I didn't really know how to make initial contact with entities that would seem to return to me. The methods of sort of manufacturing artificial elementaries or elementals or artificial fairy spirits, things that I had learned from already studying Franz Barden for a couple of years in depth at this point. Those sort of things I was able to do, especially with my coven that I was a part of at this time, me and two other fellows. But getting in touch with a spirit wasn't something I was actually good at doing that was actually out there. I mean, having communications or contacts is one thing, but linking up is another. And so the way I linked up with this spirit was, well, a psychic informed me this spirit was one of my guides and hanging around me. So I started working with him. Sure enough, this presence would appear to me and be in my life quite a bit after that. And we could have very long sort of conversations, if you will, back and forth. You want to be careful with this stuff because you can easily trip off into self-delusion, and there's many testing techniques for these sort of things, therefore. But at the end of the day, a spirit guide is a spirit guide, whether you want to call it one of your holy guardian angels or not. That's sort of a status thing that I don't think you should necessarily worry about in general. Interestingly, I put the first lines of this diary entry in quotes for some reason. One of these things we do as teenagers, being 15 at the time. strange little decisions I would make as while writing. Anyway, so let's dig in this. The first thing I mentioned is he appeared to me in his long black and white robes, and we spoke. The appearance, the way this being appeared to me, this angel appeared to me, was always like that, and it always seemed to me there was a lot of deep significance to that. And years later, I would find quite a bit of meaning in that significance. But at this time, I just sort of let the spirits be what they were, the angels or fairies or elemental creatures. I didn't look up in the Bible, for example, to find out exactly who King Josiah was. That wasn't a concern to me, whether this is that Josiah or not. It wasn't really relevant. And most important to that point, I think, is the fact that I wasn't imposing my worldly theoretical definitions onto the spirit. This can happen a lot when working with spirits, especially from grimoires. We have this very fixed idea of what they are, and we sort of try and project it onto them. And it's not always the best approach. So, I do think it's very powerful, though, especially when in a working like this, which was essentially early days rising in the plains or deep meditation. I hadn't yet developed the skills I would learn as an initiate in the Golden Dawn, though I had been practicing Golden Dawn magic for some years. At this stage in my diary, I was preparing and waiting for initiation, so I had stopped doing most Golden Dawn rituals in preparation for that. I had been making all kinds of mistakes, like doing the analysis of the keyword and with the BRH, which you just shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be doing that analysis period until a certain point. Otherwise, you just waste it essentially. I guess unless you're in jail, and then you need all the help you can get, so go for it. There's always exceptions to rules. So it's powerful to start a diary entry with a powerful moment of connection with the spirit that you're trying to contact, whether it's through evocation or meditation or scrying or travel. So that's not a bad thing, actually, just in your diaries in general, to create a bit of that sense sort of impression. Though I wish I had recorded more feelings. I think that one of the reasons, a big reason I didn't do that here is at 6 a.m. I had lots to do that day, obviously. Or I definitely wouldn't have been up that early as a 15-year-old guy. I had things to do. It would be interesting to know what day of the week this was. There's another point. Like at the time, you think, "Oh, that doesn't matter," but now, wouldn't it be interesting to? I could look it up, of course, but it would be very much more interesting in casual perusal to see. Oh, that was a Saturday. So what was I doing up at 6 a.m.? Must have had an interesting night, which I often did, given how much sort of magic I was doing. And then I had consecrated a tool. This is a new athame, or athame I was working on, because I was still deep into the Wicca and Druidry coven I was in, and had formed with my friends, and that was my basis for practice in many ways. Still, I mean, they just sort of all muddled together in my mind in those early first 3-4 years of serious practice. Whether it was yeah, you need a dagger to do your rituals. That's what seemed to make sense. Then I got a new one. I remember that one. I even had my name and pagan motto engraved on the side. But it's long gone. I will carry it with me on my trip, and I will wear it in the sweat lodge, and the ancients will bless it. This is me declaring an intention as part of my work. Um, I might have even had the angel consecrate it at this point, but again, lack of clarity in the diary entry here. I've consecrated a tool. Maybe it was the day before. I'm just jumping in here, so I'm not really sure. As I do the other entries, we'll find out more. It's an amazing what things in what entry, how they influence your understanding of previous ones based on recurrences and connections. So I consecrated this new athame. I'm sure it was just a matter of having the spirit, or, well, I don't know, so I won't say. 2, what did I do next? Then I talked about how I spoke with Josiah in meditation. It wasn't really meditation. The meditations I were doing, since I had been initiated into transcendental meditation and had my full physical ceremony and started daily practice in 1987, 88, when I was 7. I had been meditating for almost 10 years at this point. So, and grew up before that in a household of parents who meditated and did 2 hours a day. So we were often, this was, I think I was a lot further along than a lot of people were. And in my early days, especially, I would often make the mistake of just assuming that people had 3-4 years of meditation under their belt. But most people don't, of course. So that was a very big challenge for me in the early days, because I expected a lot more awareness and sensitivity from other occultists than I should have. So I spoke with Josiah, and I asked him for his blessings and protections on my trip, and I have asked for his support and his love. I have thanked him. So these are just clarifications of the communication. I mean, when you're in such a deep state, you can't do it. That's the advantage of scrying, is you can, once you get good at scrying, you can communicate and sometimes write down and be both scribe and scryer. That's a really good state to get to if you can get there. And of course I did, but when you're in deep meditation, you can't come out of it just to write down verbatim what communications are happening. And also the communications may not appear as words in your head. They may not appear intelligible in that way. They might be sensations. They might be tastes or sense, or just overwhelming revelations or realizations, and often these things all muddle together into one, right? We're not watching a movie here. We're going through a inner ecstatic experience, whether it's ecstasy expanding you outward, or ecstasy and doing the same thing but inward, sending you deep, sometimes down into yourself, or into the palaces, or outwards into the heavens. And then I ended with a prayer. That's why I really like this diary entry. I often sometimes would compose a impromptu prayer for my beings or guides or aspects that I was working with, gods. And that's a beautiful thing to do. That's why I'm really excited to share this diary entry with you. Is it's not a bad idea. I was really on to something there intuitively, I think, at this stage. So I wrote a prayer for Josiah. Sorry about that. Someone came to the door, so I had to pause. So, getting his blessing for a trip, that's also a wise thing. That sort of practice goes back and is very common in early Hebrew spells, where you call tons of angels to bless you as you go home from the pub or whatever. Travel was always dangerous, and this trip was dangerous. This was a 7-day trip into the middle of nowhere and deep in the Chilcotin mountain range with an 80-pound backpack on your back with all your stuff. With the school, going with a shaman for a sweat lodge. This is something we did every year in Waldorf School. So very magical, fun, physically absurdly challenging time for everyone involved. Even the guides we'd have to sometimes tie ourselves to trees on the side of a mountain in our sleeping bags for the night, like so we wouldn't roll down the mountainside just because we'd lose the trail or something. Good times. So getting blessings on a trip like that was very smart. It was a brutal trip that year too, very brutal. Like it dropped. It was early September, but it dropped to like way below zero, and we're up in the middle of the mountains. So here was the prayer for Josiah. Great art thou, O angel of love, bless me with thy touch. Lovely art thou, O angel of eloquence, bless me with thy peace. Holy art thou, O angel of happiness, bless me with thy kiss. Honored art thou, O angel of mercy, bless me with thy song, for now and forever. Amen. And then my old Wiccan motto, blessed be. So there's that diary entry from 26 years ago today. Very interesting. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say about that. That's not a bad example of a working with the spirit. It's actually this is a much more goetic diary entry in some ways, or example of Solomonic operation in regards to the focus on the relationship with the spirit over the going through different rituals by rote for practice or performance. And these experiences were very, very deep meditations that would take, and these ones were usually about a solid hour at this point in time, as I was getting ready to be initiated in a few months. So there we go. I hope you learned something. Thanks for listening, and there's lots more on hermeticmysteryschool.com. Look around.